right, greetings. This is your kind of geometry specific video so that you can see kind of what we'll be doing in your class specifically and kind of go through to where we're heading. Now, I know I've probably maybe not had a lot of you guys in a math class. Maybe I had you in PE or music or film. And I used to teach only math. I was teaching all the math classes, and we were kind of short as far as needing some more math classes. And so now we split the math classes. We also had some other needs like PE, music, and math, or film. So I kind of now do both. Now this term, I usually only teach about a class or two now of math to catch the overflow and do those. And now I think this term I'm teaching 3 math classes. So just having to keep my math brain on that side of it too as well. So hopefully I can kind of make that transition, because I'm sure a lot of you maybe had other math teachers for the math lab and pre-algebra. Maybe you had me on one of those, or you may have tested into one of those right away. So all different backgrounds coming into this class. So I want to just cover my main policies so that you know, definitely make sure you know here at the beginning how to turn things in for me and how we do the class. It may be a little bit different, so I want to make sure you kind of know that in advance, and also kind of cover where we're heading so that you have a good idea where we're heading in the class, and kind of give you some tips with that as well. So first thing is my daily assignments. Usually they're somewhere in between 10 to 20 points depending on the size of the assignment. And like I said on that first video, you know, we have a stream on the Google Classroom, and then a classwork tab, and then your people tab. And so that people tab I covered in that first video. You can reach me directly if you need to ask a question, or your other classmates. You can see the classwork tab is where your daily assignment turn-in spot will turn in, okay? Now every day on your stream I will post, hey, here's this video of me teaching this, or something on the internet I want you to watch that goes along with what we've learned. And usually my problems are at the end of those videos if it's me teaching, or I'll have a photo of some problems if it's, you know, other videos I have you watch, and so that they're there on the stream. The problems are on the stream, meaning, you know, that's where you can see them and then you do them. Now where you turn it in is in the classwork. So there may be, like as an example, June 10th assignment, daily assignment, turn-in spot. It's harder to write this than type it. I'm getting used to computers, and I don't know if that's good or not. So June 10th daily assignment, turn-in spot. I usually try to put maybe 2 what we're covering, so maybe it's parallel lines at that time. And so I'll have that there, and it'll be your turn-in spot, and it'll be blank, okay? Because the problems are on the stream, or in the video, or, you know, a photo of the problems there. This is just where you turn it in. So this is where you turn in your work. So that's why it's blank, because it's not my work, it's what you're turning in. So you click on it, and there'll be the plus sign that you can either add. Now, I'm kind of old school in the way of when we're here, especially I have us do the work on paper. And so if you do the work, you know, you write them down, write the problems down, and you do them on paper, all you have to do is take a photo of that, and you can add it here where it says, you know, it's got a plus sign, you put add, and you can do a document or a photo, and then, or a file, you know, however you've saved your photo on there. Or you can do it as a Google Doc. You can add Google Doc and type the answers. There is some symbols and shapes in geometry, so sometimes that's kind of hard on a Google Doc to type. That's why I give you the option of taking a photo. Usually with those, it is easier to take the photo because, like I said, if it's got a shape or something that's you can't necessarily draw on a Google Doc, it gives you another option. But I accept both, so make sure you can turn that in that way. They are usually 10 to 20 points. You can turn them in late. I highly suggest not doing that, especially with math. I was telling my pre-algebra class, you know, math builds on each other. So like if you're missing like a week, it's very hard to then jump into the next week and get right in. You have to usually go back and do that because math builds on each other. It's hard to do the next set without doing the prior set. It's not like a history class per se where like you're learning about Civil War and then you have to learn about World War II or something where there is parallel lessons on them, but at the same time, you don't necessarily need to know one to learn about the other. Whereas math, it's very hard to do that. If you miss the basic principles of this part, then it's going to make it hard to do the next step because you have to know those first. So I highly encourage you to stay up on those daily. But if you do turn in late, I do accept them with the late penalty, okay? That 30% late penalty I was talking about in that first video. So keep that in mind. Another thing is, and let me fully explain this so you understand why, I do not grade them individually. My classes are usually quite large just because some of the classes I teach are required, so like PE, big classes, my math classes. So I usually have over 100 students each term. It is just impossible for me to have enough time in the day, meaning even if I spent 5 minutes, it would almost take the full 24-hour day to grade just each assignment, and that's impossible to do when I'm adding other assignments and working with students. So, and that's even just 5 minutes. That's not even going through and actually grading. So I can't grade each one individually and mark them wrong and put this is what you missed wrong and those kind of things. Now, I say that to show we do grade them and you do find the full answer. So don't panic with that and say, well, I'm not going to know if I missed them or not. What I do is usually the next day or the following day, I fully explain the answers to all the problems, show the answers, show what is right and how to fix them and those kind of things so that you individually check yours against that. And so it really kind of gives you more because it's not just like, hey, I just marked that you missed this one and this why. It fully explains if you did miss it, how you missed it, and you can go through and fix it. It's the same like if we're in class. You've seen it before where I hand back all the papers and we grade it all together at once. And so you're checking your own work, but I'm going through and explaining it, but I'm doing it once for everybody. It's the same way online. I put that video of me explaining it, but then that applies to everybody. They check their own work and see what they missed. That's the only way we can do it for a full class is for me to be able to explain each one. So that means when I grade your assignment, I do go through and read, make sure you're getting the main concepts and that you did them all. That's where I score your paper. So you may get like the full 10 out of 10, but you may have missed one or something. But then when you get the video, when the video posts of the answers of it, then you're able to go through and check and see exactly which ones you missed and go and fix that going into your test, okay? So that explains that a little bit. I want to fully explain that to know, hey, you are going to get full explanation of so that you know which ones you're missing and those things, but I have to do it on a mass scale. That way everybody gets full time. Now, if you still have questions that you missed, what you can write me. Now, just keep in mind, I have a lot coming in, so that may take a little while to respond, but I try to get to you and write to you individually and say, well, this is what this did. So don't be afraid to reach out and if there's still confusion that you can fix something and work on something, okay? Now, the other thing I wanted to cover here was kind of where we're heading. Now, these aren't all the topics exactly. There's, so like triangles, there's gonna be different things we learn about triangles. That's a big open thing. Same thing with angles. But it gives you kind of the main points that we're gonna be getting into, so it gives you an idea of where we're heading. And some of these things you may be like, oh yeah, I remember seeing that or something. And so kind of gives you, an idea of where we're heading. I start off with a pre-algebra review. We go through some of those concepts to make sure we're strong on that. Going into, because we use those pre-algebra concepts to solve a lot of our problems in geometry. So I review that, especially too if you've not had me, it gives you an idea of, how we solve some of those problems so that you can make sure we're on the same page going into that. Then we start with some shapes and talk about, the shapes and the different terminology. That's the thing about geometry. It's got a lot of terminology that is only for geometry. So, things like a plane or not a flying plane, but, or, a line, and we know what a line is, but in geometry it's very specific what a line is. So we get into some of those. Angles, we spend a lot of time learning about angles. So like, we learn about, all the different angles in those shapes. Then we get into triangles. That builds us into triangles, and there's special characteristics to triangles that we learn about. And then we just went 0 to 60 because I know you see this and say, whoa, what is that? Like I was with you until you pointed at that. The Pythagorean theorem, that is a big part of geometry that we use, but it builds off of triangles, okay? So we break that down, spend some time on that, really figure out what that is. Parallel lines, okay? We learn about parallel lines. That's used a lot in our everyday life in construction and roads and all these things that we deal with that we use geometry. Parallel lines come up a lot. And then we spend some time on circles, okay? And the special characteristics of them. So those are some of the main points that we're going to get into, and we'll build from there. You'll be doing your daily assignments, and so we'll, 8 weeks, we'll get it in and spend some time with these things, and hopefully we have a good term, and we'll go from there. All right, thanks, guys.